So in this video, we're going to learn how different graphs related to the parent function we graphed in the last video are actually how they look. I wrote an example here. I just decided I was going to use the number 2, and I basically made a bunch of different possible graphs, and I want to see how these different changes, adding 2 or subtracting 2 on the inside, adding 2 on the outside, and so on, are going to have on my graph. These are all graphs that if we wanted to, we could make tables for. I could do a little table for each one, and I could plot some points and get my graph, and it's going to work out perfectly. But I figured this is a good chance to showcase the graphing calculator and how it can make our job a little bit easier. So I'm going to take these graphs one at a time here. I'll probably start with the top one, and let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on my screen so you guys can see it a little better. Alright. So first of all, that little note there that I wrote down about the absolute value key, you'll see it in a second, but I'll walk my way through the buttons with you. First thing you're going to do, if you want to graph something, is hit the Y equals button, which is the very top left button right here. If you hit that, it's going to take you to a menu like this. A bunch of possibilities here for entering things. When you're typing stuff in here, it's going to, like the Y is already locked into your calculator, you just type in this left part right here. And we want to do an absolute value for this one. First of all, I'll show you with just a regular variable so you can get a sense if you've forgotten how to graph a line. Say I wanted to do Y equals 2x. Let me zoom out just a little bit so you can see more of my keys here. So I would just hit the 2 key like normal. And then the X key is right next here to the green key. It's this variable key right here. If you do that, it'll say 2x like that. So I have that typed in. And then if you hit the graph button, which is in the top right over here, it'll actually show you what that looks like. If your window is kind of weird and you don't see the same picture as me, this middle key here for zoom, and then choice 6 for zoom standard, will give you kind of the default screen. So we see what Y equals 2x looks like. That's just kind of a side note there, because in this video we're going to explore a couple absolute value graphs. So I think I may actually leave the zoom like this for now, because you can still see the picture pretty well, and it'll let us see some of this stuff. So I'm going to go back to my Y equals now, and I'm going to take a look at, first of all, just the plain old absolute value of x, the one that we graphed in our last video. The way you get to the absolute value key, we're in the Y equals, you're going to hit math, and up here at the top there's a couple options. We're going to go over to number, and the very first choice says abs. Abs for absolute value, of course. I'm going to hit enter on that, and it's going to pull it up in the screen right here. Now my calculator actually says the word abs. This is an older feature of like the TI-83 and some TI-84s. A lot of the calculators we use in the classroom will actually show vertical bars here, which I like better because you can actually type it in. But if you do have abs like me, like where it actually says the word, you just type in, pretend whatever you put inside the parentheses is what's inside the absolute value bars. Again, on the newer calculators, you'll see actual bars that you just fill in. So that's going to be just the absolute value of x. And if I graph that, you can see that we weren't wrong in that last video. There's that v that we were talking about before. I'm going to go ahead and graph this next guy right here alongside this one so we can see how it changed. So I'm going to go back to abs, and this time on the inside I'm going to do an x plus 2. So when I do my x plus 2 there, my original is still there. This is my new graph over here. And if you look to get from the original to this one, it looks like the whole graph got moved to the left. Specifically, it went left 1, 2 units. We took the whole picture and we shifted or translated it left 2. I'm going to write that down here, and I want you guys to record as we go through these, just the different results. So this first guy here went left 2. So I'm going to go back to my Y equals right now, and this time I'm going to leave the original still, because I want to have that as a frame of reference, and I'm going to change that second one and make that a minus 2. And let's see what happens to my graph. There's my original, and there's my new one, which appeared to go right 2. So there's the original shifted right 2 for that second possibility. If I look at my next one here, this one, the plus 2, is outside the absolute value. So what I'm going to have to do for that, I'll close my parentheses before then and I'll do a plus 2 on the outside, like this. That's this one right here. Original, new one, went up 2. And if I change that to a minus 2, hopefully by now you're seeing the pattern. This one's going to move it down 2. Original, and there's the new one. So it takes our whole graph and it just shifts it down 2. To close these out, just want to talk about what happens when you have a number being multiplied outside the absolute value. So 2 times the absolute value of x, like that, takes the graph and it basically, there's the original, it made the graph skinnier on the inside, so it goes up faster. This is the new one, and it got skinnier than my original. So this one makes your graph, for now I'll leave it, I'll just say it's narrower. We'll get more in depth on the next video. And if you do the 1/2 x, just to make things easier on myself, I'm going to do a 0.5, same thing. So 0.5 times x or 1/2 times x are the same thing. Original, and you can see there's the original, it took the, and it made it wider for the second graph. So if you multiply by a fraction, our graph got wider. Keep these observations handy, because in the next video I'm going to show you how these actually are used to graph simply by hand.